All right. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of D&D Deep Dive, the show where we go in depth with various class features and the things like that to really give you an idea of how they were intended to play and how you can get the most out of them. So, today, I am again trying some new things, trying to see what people tend to like the most as far as like the format and the length of everything. So for this video and my next two other videos, I'm going to try something slightly different with just some shorter videos, just to see how you guys like them. So what I'm going to be covering is the Unearthed Arcana for last month. Gave us the three new subclasses that, for the most part, I really enjoy. I think there's some good things and maybe more problematic things of each one. And the most important aspect is I've actually already covered the base classes of all of the three of them in my D&D deep dives. So I can just go into the subclasses. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make one video for each subclass instead of doing all three in one, and just see if that works better for everyone. And then I'll just release them one a day. So today's subclass is going to be the Artificer subclass, the Armorer. First things first, let's kind of go over. Excuse me. Oh, much better. We kind of need to go over, like we always do, kind of the basics of the Artificer class. What makes it unique? Now, we've talked before the basics of any class should show up within the first one or two levels, and they should define the class. Everything from that point on should fit into those initial aspects, and it should modify it in some way or enhance it in some way. And when class design starts running into issues, generally it's because they will add class features and the things like that that either don't work with the initial aspects and definitive aspects of the class, or actively conflict with them by adding new things that just don't work together. So with the armor, or with the artificer in general, the big defining features of the class are it is a kind of tinkering style class. Right from first level, you have the ability to just put little magical effects into non-magical items. It's a half caster, so the spells itself are designed to help you kind of modify the things on the fly, and the things like that. And finally, the infusions. Infusions are basically the artificer having the ability to create their own magic items. So Artificer itself is a very magic item heavy class. They can actually attune more magic items than any other class. And they can make their own magic items through their infusions. And if you use, there are optional rules on how to make your own magic items in D&D. If you use those rules, an artificer would be a character that very much would be making their own magic items in addition to their infusion. So Again, the defining features of the class, they're a tinkerer. They change things on the fly, kind of like a sorcerer. But instead of changing magic on the fly, they modify items on the fly. So they're kind of the physical aspect of the creativity of a sorcerer. The armorer, I love. Let's get this out of the way. You guys are going to be saying it in the comments. You're going to be thinking it as you read it. The armorer is Iron Man. You turn into Iron Man. That's what it is. This, if I was to make Iron Man in D&D, I would just go, here, you're an Artificer with the armor subclass. Done. That's all you need. Use the fly spell when you get it. Everything else is in here. And I love it. Normally, I would kind of think throwing a character like Iron Man into a D&D game, especially at a low level like the 3, when you can choose this, would be very unbalancing and wouldn't be much fun for everyone else, because Iron Man basically always has the right answer, always has a gadget or something that they can use to win. It's just who Iron Man is. So I think how they limit this class while still allowing them to be very interesting and fun to play, and to allow you to play a character that's not Iron Man, is really cool. So let's go into the meat of it. Right when you choose it at the 3rd level, you get a few third level abilities, which is again something I'm seeing more often now, where it used to be at the 3rd level you'd get like 2-ish things, and most of the 3rd level classes, subclasses I'm seeing, or just subclasses in general, are adding more stuff right at the level 3 or level 2 whenever you choose it, that really differentiate it from other subclasses, which I like. I enjoy being able to have 2 or sometimes even 3 of this. It's the same class in a party, and each one feels special. Each one feels different, and feels like they can fill a different role. And by adding a lot of features and kind of heavy loading the front of the class, you get that feel really well. An armorer is going to play incredibly differently than a battlesmith or an artillerist. So I like that. So right at the 3rd level, the first thing you get is what's called tools of the trade, which is you get heavy armor proficiency and proficiency with smith's tools. And if you already have that, excuse me, if you already have that tool proficiency, you get proficiency in another type of artisan's tools. Totally makes sense to get smith's tools proficiency. Because you're going to be building your own armor. Second thing you get is your armor spells. Just like every other subclass, you get an expanded spell list. And again, with the Artificer, and again, this kind of fits into that idea of they're very much a tinkerer. They're very much about, changing things when they need it. Armorers prepare spells like clerics and druids, where they have access to their entire spell list, and they just prepare a set number of spells per day. But every day, they can have a brand new set of spells. So this simply expands what they can have. These spells are always prepared, and they don't count against your spells prepared. So they're just extra spells they can cast. The 3rd level is Magic Missile and Shield, which fits really well with this whole thing. Fifth is mirror image and shatter. Ninth level, you get hypnotic pattern and lightning bolt. 13th is fire shield and greater invisibility. So this is 17th levels, pass wall and wall of force. All of these really fit into the idea of this is a kind of artificer, which we'll talk about in the next feature. This is an artificer that really focuses on modifying their own person, their own being, to fit a very specific role. The defining feature of the armorer is called power armor. Again, you get it at the third level. Basically, as an action, you can turn a suit of heavy armor you are wearing into power armor, provided you have smith's tools in hands. And turning it into power armor changes a few things. If the armor normally has a strength requirement, the power armor lacks this requirement for you. You can use the power armor as a spellcasting focus for your artificer spells. Really, really useful, because that means you never don't have your spellcasting focus, which for other classes can be a big deal. The power armor attaches to you and can't be removed against your will. It also expands to cover your entire body, and it replaces any missing limbs functioning identically to a body part it is replacing. So another really interesting thing, if you are playing a character that is missing an arm or maybe missing a leg, the power armor can give them an artificial limb, which is really cool. Now, in the Eberron Rising from the Last War book, they actually do have magical artificial limbs in there that you could use kind of either in addition to the power armor, or if you're any other class, just to replace a limb. But I like the idea that it doesn't matter what happens once you put on your power armor, you are set. And the armor continues to be power armor until you doff it, you don another suit of armor, or you die. Really useful. Again, and another thing that a lot of people kind of underestimate is the likelihood of getting captured in a D&D game. It's something that I think can happen pretty regularly in most campaigns, depending on what's happening. And I think it's something that can be a lot of fun for players, because you put them in a different situation. They have limited options as far as how they can get out of it, and it just adds a new kind of turn to a game. With this, as long as they have their power armor on, you can throw them, like, you can do whatever you want to take away everything from them. You can't take their spellcasting focus, and you can't take off their armor. That's a big deal for folks. And that changes a lot of things. It also means situations where people have to get ready quickly. The armor has a slight advantage there. So again, I like the lore behind it. I like the mechanical aspects of it. None of it feels too empowering, to be honest, because you also have to give up some stuff to use your armor. But yeah, so you have a fourth feature, which goes along with the power armor, which is armor model. This is another thing I really like about certain subclasses, is when they give you options to customize it even more to the point where you could have two armorers in your team, and they could still, depending on their choices, play differently. And I like that. To me, the most annoying the thing that can happen to you in a D&D game is for someone else to play the exact same class as you, because then you just kind of feel like a copy. And depending on who goes first in an initiative or who decides to make the first move in a situation, you kind of get the feeling that you either you have to copy their actions because they made a really good move, or you feel a little limited because, well, they did that, so I don't want to do that, and it just feels frustrating. So the fact that with armor model, you can actually go two separate routes, and yeah, I just like that. Now, but basically with armor model, you choose one of two models. You can change the model of your armor at a short or long rest. So you are never going to feel like you are just kind of screwed. Excuse me. If you choose like a guardian at the first level, and then it's later on, or at the third level, and later on you need to be a little more stealthy. Short rest to turn into infiltrator, and you're good. So let's go with the specifics. Guardian is kind of the melee, kind of tanky version of the armor. You get two things that kind of define the Guardian armor. You get the Thunder Gauntlets, which basically turns each weapon, each fist, glove of the armor into its own weapon. They count as simple melee weapons, and they do 1d8 of the thunder damage on a hit. And a creature hit by the gauntlet has disadvantage on attack rolls against targets other than you until the start of your next turn. And they mentions because the armor creates this magically distracting pulse when the creature attacks someone else. So, excuse me. What that means is this really kind of turns you into a tank. You're wearing a heavy armor, so you have a decently high attack score, or AC, and you can just go up and wail on people and then kind of force them to attack you. Really, very much like the old defender role in the 4th edition. And they have quite a few things in the 5th edition that add similar aspects. But it's a really useful thing to have. The other thing you have is what's called the defensive field, which is basically as your bonus action. Excuse me. You can give yourself temporary hit points equal to your level in the Artificer class. So really, this is built around doing melee damage and protecting yourself, but basically taking a hit. So this kind of shifts the Artificer from still very much a tinkering kind of class, kind of go with the moment, but this shifts it a little more into a tinkering class that can take a hit and is designed to take a hit. The Infiltrator, on the other hand, has the three things that define it. You have a lightning launcher, where a gem-like node appears in one of your armored fists or on the chest, your choice. It's really weird. A gem appearing on your hand or in your chest that shoots stuff. Wonder where they got that idea from. It's not a repulsing idea. For those of you that don't know, Iron Man's little weapon things are called repulsor rays. And explaining the joke makes it that much more of a funny knot. Um, they count as a simple range weapon, normal range at 90 feet, long range at the 300 feet. And they do a d6 of lightning damage on a hit, and once on your turn, you can add an additional d6 of lightning damage when you hit a target. So I don't know why, but my nose is itching. This is something fierce. Um, yeah, you basically have little laser beams that you can shoot. Really nice, really useful. Your walking speed increases by 5 feet. Another useful thing. And that's called the powered steps. And then the last thing is second skin, which the armor's weight is negligible, and it becomes form-fitting and wearable under clothing. If the armor normally imposes disadvantage on dex stealth checks, the power armor doesn't. So the Infiltrator is 100% what it sounds like. It is a stealth kind of armor. You can attack from range. Again, anytime you're wearing the power armor, you can use it as your spell casting focus. So you can still be casting spells from far away, and it's very much a ranged option, whereas the Guardian is much more a melee option. Next thing, at the 5th level, you get the extra attack feature. Pretty basic. And in the 9th level, you get what's called armor modifications, which goes back into that idea of artificers being tinkerers. Your power armor now, instead of just counting as armor, where it could only take one infusion that was designed for armor, it now counts as 4 separate pieces. You have the armor, which is the chest piece, the boots, the bracers, and a weapon. Each one of those items can bear an infusion, and the maximum number of items you can infuse at once is increased by 2. But those extra items have to be part of your power armor. So again, for fitting into that idea of artificers are going to modify items and the things like that. Now their armor is a modifiable item. You can put weapons enchants on your gauntlets or your chest beam. You can put boot enchants. You can put bracer enchants. All those different things can be added to your armor, which is cool. And again, really kind of narrows in on the idea that this Artificer is going to be defined by what they do to their armor. And from the Iron Man aspect, that's totally an Iron Man the thing. Like, he's constantly putting the new bits and pieces on. I just love this class. 15th level, you get what's called perfected armor. This is another thing that changes whether it's Guardian or Infiltrator. Guardian, you actually get a pull system. When a creature you see ends its turn within the 30 feet of you, you can use your reaction to force the creature to succeed on a strength save, or be pulled up to the 30 feet towards you to an unoccupied space. And if you can pull them all the way to you, to where they're within 5 feet, you can make a melee weapon attack against it. And you can use this reaction an equal time up to your intelligence modifier. You get all expanded uses when you finish a long rest. Again, this is a really kind of aggressive aspect of the character. It can only happen at the end of another character's turn, but this is giving the Guardian extra attacks, which is really useful. Um, and it uses your reaction, which there for the Guardians specifically. There's not a ton of reactions it's going to be casting. There's defensive spells, things like shield, or absorb elements, the things like that. But beyond that, the class itself doesn't have a dedicated reaction. So this just gives you another tool in your tool belt to make sure that your reaction gets a use. A lot of characters don't use their reaction very much at all in most combat, because it's a lot of it is reliant on other characters doing something that you could react against. So this, again, I like it. I think it's interesting, and anything that adds extra attacks can be very useful. Again, the thinking about that whole action economy, if you can turn your reaction into basically an extra attack, that's adding actions to your team's action economy, which is always a plus for you. And limiting it to your intelligence modifier means it doesn't get too powerful. Excuse me. For the infiltrator, any creature that takes a lightning damage from your lightning launcher glimmers with light until this is the start of your next turn. The creature sheds of dim light in a 5-foot radius, and the next attack roll against it by a creature other than you has advantage. If that attack hits, it deals an extra 1d6 lightning damage. This, again, for a stealth kind of character, is massively useful. This basically allows you to mark an enemy. The next person that it attacks it gets advantage, which if that's something like a rogue, where having advantage automatically gives them their sneak attack, this can be a really, really good 1-2 punch. And then if they crits, they do crazy damage. Or another really useful one is things like the paladins, or a battlesmith, or a hexblade with the hex smite ability, the thing that I can't remember what it's called. All those things where they can do extra damage, even a hunter, giving them advantage gives them a much better chance of rolling a crit and just doing tons of damage. And that's just an aspect of it, attacking for it. So by making this attack every round, you are massively helping your team and really become kind of almost a controller aspect. The other thing that's nice is because it does a d6 of lightning damage and not a just a flat buff, that means on a crit, you're going to double that damage. You're going to roll to 2d6. So it just stacks and becomes really, really useful. Now, again, the limiting aspect of that is if you do that attack, you can't use any of your spells. And as you, again, this is level 15. At that point, your cantrips have leveled up to the third level. You get it a level 11. So like a firebolt does the 3d10 damage, whereas your shot only does 2d6 if you do that extra lightning damage, and then another d6 if you hit twice. So you can do 3d10 and then mark them for another good character, or you can do the 3d10 with your own cantrip, or even more damage with an actual level spell, or you can do the 3d6 and mark them to hopefully get even more damage from another ally. So again, it gives you choices, but it doesn't make it where you always have to do this. The other thing that this adds is just a couple more infusions for the Artificer, which I think are interesting. armor of magical strength. Basically, you can replace strength checks with and strengths as saving throws with intelligence checks. So athletics checks you can use intelligence instead of strength. And for strength saves, you can just make it into intelligence save. It's an armor attunement, so it would go on your chest for the armor. And it requires a 10th level Artificer. So this is not something that's going to break the game low levels, but once you get to upper, level 10 or level 11, where you get to tier 3, it doesn't really feel overpowered, and it can definitely help make the character a little bit tougher, especially if you're using the Guardian armor, because again, the armors themselves, the Artificer itself only gets a D8 of health, and you're designed to take a lot of damage. This will just make it that much easier for you to resist things like grapples or spells that require strength saves, like I think it's Vines. I'd have to look at it again. And then it also has 4 charges. As a reaction, when you would be knocked prone, you could expend a charge to not be knocked prone. Another kind of cool thing. And the armor regains D4 expended charges daily at dawn. Interesting. Has very specific uses. I think for the infiltrator armor, it probably wouldn't be as useful. But there's a lot of other characters that would wear armor that could be very useful for things like a Blade Singer would get a lot out of that armor. Armor of tools basically allows you to integrate a set of tools into your armor, and the wearer can add their intelligence modifier to any ability checks it makes with the integrated tools. If you're doing infiltrator and you want to be kind of a rogue substitute, integrate a set of lockpicks into your armor, and you can now pick locks, disable traps, the things like that. And with the fact that you're an intelligence-based caster, you're going to be a little bit better at investigation to find traps and the things like that. So again, kind of interesting. Again, you can integrate any kind of tools in it. Any artisan's tool. So there's other things you can do, but the big thing that stood out to me is the Thieves tool. Helm of Awareness, another thing that requires is the 10th level. While wearing this helmet, you have advantage on initiative rolls, and you can't be surprised. It basically gives you the equivalent of a weapon of warning, which is one of my favorite magic items. My Shadow Monk Aether has a Trident of Warning. He can't use it. It's not a monk weapon, and he's not proficient in it, so he can't fight with it. But he keeps it on him because advantage on an initiative rolls and you can't be surprised is massively useful. So Helm of Awareness, amazing. Absolutely adore it. Mind Sharpener, this is the one that I think is a little bit OP. It's a suit of armor or robes, so this basically any spellcaster. The infused item can send a jolt to the wearer to refocus their mind. While wearing this infused item, whenever the creature fails a Constitution saving throw to maintain concentration on a spell, it can use its reaction to succeed instead. That's a big deal. Because the limiting aspect of a lot of spellcasters is their reliance on concentration spells, and a lot of the really almost like game-breaking ones, things like Banish, or other ones that can have create issues, are things like Fly and greater invisibility. All of those can be really, really detrimental, but they're limited by the fact that they have to concentrate on them, and breaking concentration just requires getting hit enough. With this, the likelihood of a high level character failing enough saving throws that they lose a spell when they can just react and get their concentration to succeed is pretty low. Again, a concentration check for most spellcasters is you only have to get a 10 or higher. In general, you're going to have a +3 or 4. There's a lot of other things like Battle Mage where you can add your intelligence modifier to your concentration checks, and then adding this. Concentration spells are no longer limiting. So that's the only infusion that I would want to add, kind of like with the Guardian Perfected Armor, where you can use this reaction at a number of times equal to your intelligence modifier. That would be the only thing I would add to the Mind Sharpener, just because it's a little too powerful. It makes spellcasters even more powerful than they already are, which isn't a lot of fun for anyone. So, yeah, and then the final one is Spell Refueling Ring. You have to be a 6th level Artificer to create it, but it basically gives you a ring that allows you to recover one suspended spell slot as an action per day. But the level of the spell slot is equal to the number of magic items you have attuned. Meaning for a non-artificer, you can only tune up to the 3 items, and the ring itself requires attunement. So you can only get up to a level 3 slot from the ring. For an artificer, when they get to max level, they can have up to 6 items tuned, and they only get a maximum of 5th level spells. So for artificers specifically, that's a really useful ability, and even for non-artificers, as long as you have the 3 tuned magic items, 3rd level spells are big deals. Fireball, lightning bolt, fly. Those are all the 3rd level spells. Having a ring that gives you an extra 3rd level slot once a day, massively useful. So that's the armorer. In the comments below, tell me what you think of the armor itself. Do you like the idea of having a Iron Man in D&D? Would you are there aspects of it that you feel are really unbalanced? Like I said, I think the class itself fits pretty well with the other stuff and the abilities of other classes. But I haven't seen it played yet, so I don't really know. Otherwise, that's all for me today, and I will see you guys tomorrow with another subclass from Unearthed Arcana. Bye-bye!